The following program is for mature audiences only. Football talk shows, most of them sound like this. Blah, 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 blah. Not this one. That's because it features the former director of college scouting with the Chicago Bears. He worked on the staff that drafted, the likes of Devin Hester, Olin Kreutz, Lance Briggs. He's the man who takes shit from absolutely nobody. He's Greg Gabriel. Gabriel joins longtime Chicago sports reporter David Schuster. And this is, accordingly, Gabriel Schuster Talk Bears.
Welcome to Gabriel and Schuster Talk Bears. I, though, am not David Schuster. I am Aldo Gandia, filling in for a vacationing David Schuster. David, hope you're having a great time, and I can't wait for you to be back because I can't fill your shoes. But Greg Gabriel is here. He's going to fill his own shoes, and he does so always tremendously. Greg, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, but because you're here instead of David and using the intro, is this going to be like the ordinary talk shows? It's going to be blah, blah, blah?
Probably.
Or are we going to have some fun here?
Let's have some fun.
Okay.
I expect you to call me out on my stupid questions and even dumber points of views on things. But so I'm going to keep my points of view to a minimum and try to get as much information out of you as possible. My
That
first
means you got to pay me double.
Exactly. Triple. You deserve more than triple. My first question to you is, now after several days of this Bears win over the Texans, and you've given it some more thought, you and David obviously did a great show on Monday, but you've had a couple more days to kind of sit and have that victory soak in a little bit. Anything that you kind of have learned or want to share with our listeners and viewers about that win?
No, I don't think there's anything that I've learned. I said it on the show the other day. I think that benching Mitch turned out to probably be a good thing. That he examined himself, and he's come back. In the last two games, he's played as good a football as he's played since he's been a Chicago Bear. Throw out the fumble, and that really wasn't his fault. That was a great defensive play by Romeo Okwara from Detroit. Mitch has played basically error-free football. He's moved the offense. The running game's been better. I think the offensive line starting to come together with the guys learning to play with one another. Still, there's a few guys in there that are backups, but they're playing better. But it gets down to this. This is a shit or get off the pot game. Mm-hmm. They have to win this game. They're still in the playoff chase, and it's real simple. They win the last three games, and Arizona loses a game, and believe it or not, this team's in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And who would have thought that 2 weeks ago? Mm-hmm. And so if they continue to play like they did the last couple of weeks on offense, the defense has got to continue to play like last week. Because if you go back, the first Minnesota game, that was really the first game that the defense was going south.
Right.
And wasn't playing to their usual self. Mm-hmm. And then that followed up, for a couple games. Now they got to go back to being, and I don't care if it's a home game or a road game, they got to go back to being the way they were last week, cause turnovers, put pressure on the quarterback, and then go from there. And, they got to – it's funny, Minnesota is not that good a football team, but they play good against the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
So, you watch them last week, they're very, very average. You watch them the week before, they're average.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'd like to see Minnesota be average this week and the Bears play like they did last week.
Although the Bears have had some success, the Matt Nagy Bears have had some success against the Vikings. And in fact, Matt Nagy has yet to lose a game at US Bank Stadium. Now, that doesn't mean crap on Sunday when they line up at noon, but that is, at least some solace, I guess is the word, for Chicago Bears fans, knowing that Nagy has had some success against that team.
Well, it really it gets down to execution, and
Mhm.
fans don't want to hear that, but that's really what it is. You drop your game plan. You got to execute the way you expect to execute, make plays, stop the opponent, and you got a chance to win.
Mhm.
So uh, right now the team is at good strength injury wise. I mean, obviously some of the key guys that were lost early in the year, they're not going to be there, but the guys who have stepped in, they've started to play good football. And now they got to continue to do it. And like I said, this is the season right now is all on this game. They lose this week, it's all over. They're out of the playoffs. They win this week, they still got a chance.
Yeah, you said that. And, I tried to do some research on what is the formula for getting into the playoffs and stuff. And of course, with 3 games left in the season, it gets very convoluted. But I did find something. Somebody posted this on Twitter, and I tried to confirm it. And from all the research that I saw, here is one easy playoff scenario for the Chicago Bears. This from the guy who listens to us frequently, the George U. He says that the Bears can actually clinch before the Packers game if the following happens. The Cowboys beat the 49ers in week 15. The Bears beat the Vikings. The Bears beat the Jaguars in week 16. The Eagles beat the Cardinals in week 15.
Although I got to interrupt you for 1 second. My wife got home. My dog's going to start barking. I'm going to let him out of the study here.
Okay, no problem. This is live TV, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to do play-by-play. There goes Greg Gabriel, who is recovering from knee surgery. He gets up brilliantly. He opens the door with his right hand. He is now headed back to his desk. What a beautiful office he has. And now he is taking his position, and he's settling back in, and we now get back to our
The play-by-play man, Aldo Gandia. Okay, we're back.
So the Eagles, if they beat the Cardinals, the Niners, they beat the Cardinals in week 16, and then the Saints beat the Vikings in week 16. So I wanted to share this with you, Greg, because all of this is somewhat plausible. I mean, Eagles beating the Cardinals in week 15, that might be a little bit of a stretch, although Jalen Hurts has that team running pretty well right now.
Well, that's one game, and now the Cardinals have got a game of Jalen Hurts on tape to see what he can and can't do.
That's big.
And the Cardinals, they got their back against the wall, too. They got to win. As far as the Green Bay game, I look at it this way. If that game means nothing to Green Bay as far as home field advantage or the playoffs, they're already in the playoffs. They've won the division. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to play, or he might play a quarter. It's going to be like a preseason game. So that's the way I look at it. We'll just, we got to take it a week at a time and see what happens. Right now it's Minnesota. You got to win this game. To win this game, then next week you got to beat Jacksonville.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Just go out there and win, baby, win, as Al Davis of the Raiders used to say all the time. Now, you were talking at the start of the show about the importance of the offensive line and the fact that they're playing better and so forth. Well, I got this soundbite from Sam Mustipher, who I think has been a revelation at center. First of all, before I play the soundbite, what do you think about Sam Mustipher's play at center? Because apparently the coaching staff is really, really pleased with him, and his teammates all really respect him as a leader. What do you think about Sam's performance?
Well, first of all, I watched Sam a lot when he was at Notre Dame, and he was a 2-year starter at Notre Dame. Played a lot of football there. Played strong. Might even been a 3-year starter. I don't remember on that, but played a lot of football. I think one of it. He didn't get drafted. His final year at Notre Dame actually went down a little bit from the year before. And that's why he didn't get drafted. He was looked at as a potential mid-round draft choice going into his senior year. For whatever reason, play slipped. And I think that's the first year that Harry was here. So he lost Harry as the coach.
Right.
But then they also lost Quentin Nelson, McGlinchey. So, he had new people around him and he just didn't play as well. And he doesn't get drafted, but he was a very experienced college free agent. So do I see him as a starter down the road? No, I really think he's a backup that can help the team. I think Cody Whitehair is going to be back, unless they just think he plays so good that Cody Whitehair is going to be at one guard and Daniels is going to be at the other guard next year. I mean, that's a possibility. You want to get the best guys.
Right.
But right now, with 3 games to go, I still see him as a quality backup that can help you and come in and help you win if somebody goes down. But let's see how he finishes the season.
Yeah, that is key. These upcoming 3 games could help him. It could help with the coaches determining whether he is starter material the rest of the way. Because sometimes, guys, this better than anyone. Sometimes guys will have a series of good games, and then once the opposing coaches, particularly in the offseason when they're doing a lot of tape review, they start to figure out, okay, this is how you beat this guy. This is what you should do, and so forth. And so a guy's performance can dip in their second season because they've been figured out by opposing coaches. Isn't that true?
Yeah, that's true. But I'm going to say one other thing, and a positive thing for Sam, and that when he was at Notre Dame, he had Alex Spires next to him. For a year and a half, and Alex got hurt his last year. So now he's here. He's got the same guy next to him. It's not like they've never played together. They played together for a year and a half at Notre Dame, and they know each other very, very well. They know what they can do, what they can't do. And when you get to offensive line play, as far as feeding one guy off to another, picking up stunts, etc., that experience, whether it was playing together in college or playing together in the pros, it really helps each other.
Well, this is Sam Mustipher meeting with the media earlier today on Thursday, and he's basically echoing what you said when he was asked, what's it like playing next to Cody Whitehair?
Cody's played a lot of football in this league. Obviously, that's been critical to my development and Alex's as well. And then you also have Charles Leno and Jermaine Ifedi out there too. So being with a group of veterans, it's been important. And Cody and Charles have played next to each other before. Same with Alex and myself. And so it's really just gelling, coming together as a unit and understanding our roles as they relate to this offense has been important.
And that was something that Bill Lazor said earlier in the week. I think actually it was last week. He said that this unit, the coaching staff decided, let's stop moving guy from here to there and let's just settle on the 5 starters and keep them in there and try to simplify things for them. And I think that's a big reason why this offensive line has started to play better: familiarity, better communication, and attention to detail.
No, there's no question about that. Again, when the more play time that you get with each other, the easier it is. But at the same time, the opponents know that too. So now they're going to try to go into a game and say, okay, they're going to look at the tape of last week, the week before. This is what worked for the defense. This is what didn't work for the defense. And then try to use those things to screw up how the Bears offensive line plays.
Any part of this offensive line worry you? And one of the things that I was talking to Danny Shimon, you're a student of yours at your scouting class, and Neil Stopchinski, those guys are the co-hosts of our Draft on Tap show. And one of the things that we were talking about when we were analyzing the line is that Charles Leno, the left tackle, he gets a lot of heat from fans. But when you compare him with the 31 other starting left tackles, I think that he's right there in the middle of the group. There are left tackles in the NFL who are far worse than Charles Leno Jr. And then, in fact, you look at Laramie Tunsil, who was a top 10 pick in the draft when he came out. He didn't play so well against the Chicago Bears last week.
You know what? When I was working for the Bears, Jerry and I were working together. Jerry had a term, and this actually fits Jay Leno perfectly. He's a rank and file player. Okay. He's not a star. He's never going to be a star. He's a guy who you can win with. There's 2 types of players. You can win with him. You can win because of him. You don't win because of him. You win with him, and he's got to have a supporting cast around him. Okay. He's got the people next to him got to help him. He can play, put it this way, if he's not here, he's going to be playing somewhere else. Right. And he's got the talent play. He doesn't have ideal height, but he's got really good length for a guy. He measured, I think, in the combine 6'3" and 7'8", so he's 6'4". eighth of an inch short of 6'4", but he's got arms like a guy 6'5", or maybe a little bit taller. So he gets away with being a little bit shorter. Yeah. Does he have a screw up every once in a while? Yeah, but there's not a player in the league that doesn't.
Exactly.
Point is, when he has one, it's like being quarterback for the Chicago Bears. You're not allowed to make a mistake. When you have a screw up, it becomes magnified because the media and the fans just jump all over the player.
I hear you. All right. Another thing that I wanted to play for you was offensive coordinator Bill Lazor. And before I play this for you, I want to ask you, how would you assess the offense now that he is calling the plays? Have you seen a noticeable difference in the style of play calling, on anything that you can kind of point to and say, well, this is different than how Matt Nagy did it, and maybe this is better or even worse? Any thoughts on Bill Lazor's play calling?
Well, there's a huge difference in that it's what they're doing. They're not doing as much drop back. They're doing more play action, rollouts, bootlegs, getting Mitch on the move, doing run plays off of Mitch playing on the move. And that all plays to Mitch's strength. Now, that's not necessarily how he's calling a game. That's the plays that go on the sheet for the game plan.
Right.
So now it gets to how is the coaching staff putting that together as the game plan for each week? It's worked the last couple weeks. And obviously, when you have that it gives another element to the offense that the Minnesota Vikings have to look at when they're preparing to play the Bears this week. So I saw a couple things this morning where Mitch said, well, he's more vocal in what he wants and what he doesn't want.
Right.
In the offense and what he feels comfortable with. And then they attributed that to he watching Nick Foles be vocal like that.
Right.
So maybe, early in his career with Matt Nagy as coach, and Matt Nagy is really the true offensive coordinator, he was like, I'm going to do what they want me to do, and I'm going to shut my mouth. And now he's like, my career's on the line, and I'm going to do what I think I got to do, and I'm going to vocalize that.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, Trubisky, with each of his last few appearances in front of the media, he does seem to have like a tougher exterior now. He is sort of in screw you mode. You guys were down on me. The coaching staff took my job away, demoted me, whatever. He seems to just have a tougher exterior, and he wants to do it, the old Frank Sinatra song, do it my way. I think he's kind of in that mindset now, and good for him, right?
Well, it's basically he's got nothing to lose. Because everybody had him run out of town. And so, he's like, screw that. I'm going to do it my way and let the chips fall. Say, hey, now I'm going to say this. And I said it on Monday when we did the show. And I think there's other people in town that are coming along the same way of thinking. If he continues to play this way for the next 3 games, he will be the quarterback of the Chicago Bears next year, and he will get an extension. Now, will he make $20 million a year, 25? No. I think he'll get probably a 2-year, maybe at most a 3-year, but I'm thinking that the fair thing would be a 2-year extension. He's going to obviously get a raise. I think he's making $9 million, which I'll take that. I'll take that for the rest of my life. But,
I'll split it with you.
Yeah, and we can live pretty good.
Absolutely.
It's probably somewhere in that 15 to 17 to 18 million dollar. I mean, he wins, the team wins, and he's got it's basically he's betting on himself type of contract, a prove it contract, but he's getting paid for playing better at the end of the year. And that shows me a little bit about his football character, if he in fact does continue to play good. Now, as I said on Monday, and I'll say it again right now, if he plays terrible on Sunday, everything's off the books. It's all done, finished, over.
I couldn't agree with you more. This is a really critical game, not only for the Chicago Bears in terms of keeping their playoff hopes alive, but to the last ditch effort to try to save Mitch Trubisky's career with the Chicago Bears starts Sunday at 12 o'clock Central on Fox TV. Now, I wanted to play that soundbite for you of Bill Lazor. He says one of the reasons that the team is playing better on offense is because the coaching staff has really been stressing to their players to get yards after the catch, that it's been a high area of emphasis. They've actually been showing replays, like, for instance, one replay that they showed a couple of weeks ago, if you remember, Cordero Patterson stretched out to pick up a first down against the Lions. They showed that, they kind of reacted to it and said, and showed other plays like that. And against the Texans, they had a lot of success with yards after the catch. This is Bill Lazor amplifying on that point.
We've tried to really stress run after the catch the last few weeks, and I think it's been gaining for us. And I think guys are starting to feel it, and it's you saw Allen Robinson, I think it was a 35-yard play when he made the safety miss. You saw, obviously Cole has a couple there where they have a hard time bringing them to the ground. I don't know if they've brought them down on all of those yet. So I think guys are just starting to understand how it all fits together. Mitch's decisions with him, okay, now I get the ball in my hands underneath. I pierce the defense and get everything I can.
Greg, that is part of the identity of this offense. It's getting the ball to your playmakers and having them create yards, right?
Yeah, no question. But and part of that soundbite was breaking up. I'm going to say one thing, that one of those clips you showed was A-Rob running after the catch. But if any guy has been the player that was not as good as he should be after the catch, it's A-Rob. Look at how many catches where he catches the ball and goes down right away. And I think last week was the first time where he actually committed himself to getting some sort of yardage after the catch instead of going down right away, and actually picked up quite a bit of yardage after the catch.
Yeah. Well, and there was that critical sequence against the Detroit Lions where he went out of bounds despite the fact that the cornerback guarding him fell, and he could have easily picked up a first down on that critical late series. And if you're going to point to a series of plays that could have cost him that game, that play has to go on.
That play was like a rookie mistake, and that the old adage, know where you are on the field. You have no clue where he was.
Yeah, that was sad. All right, let's start talking a little bit about this Minnesota Vikings team, and we'll begin with Kirk Cousins, the quarterback of the Vikings. What's your assessment about Kirk Cousins? Everybody kind of likes to pick on him because he's signed an $80 million contract, but hasn't played like an $80 million quarterback. Well, what's your honest assessment of how he plays and his efficiencies?
I think he's an average starting quarterback. He's not great. He's good enough to win if he has help. He's not going to win the game by himself. I go back to what I said a little while ago. You either win with him or win because of him. You're winning with him. And it's the supporting cats. In his case, he's got a couple good receivers and he's got a hell of a running back, Dalvin Cook. But you take those guys away and he's average. And he's the type of quarterback that if you put pressure on him, especially up the middle, he's not the most mobile guy. He's going to turn the ball over. He's either going to fumble or he's going to throw a pick.
And he's been sacked quite a bit. The graphic on the bottom states that he was sacked 6 times by the Tampa Bay Bucks last week, and the Bears have turned on their sack machine. They had 7 sacks against Deshaun Watson. Do you anticipate the Bears defense making life tough for Cousins this week?
Well, they have to. And the last time they played Minnesota, the pass rush was null. The stat now is he's been sacked 31 times during the year. You don't got to sack him 7 times like the Bears sacked the quarterback last week, but you got to get 4 and you got to get consistent pressure. It's not just the sack, it's the pressure, because the pressure can lead to a turnover.
Yeah. People, by the way, are commenting on my mustache. They apparently like that. Yeah, and Brummy says that there's some interference and clicking noises, and I hear that too. Unfortunately, I don't know what to do to eliminate that. So please bear with us. Hopefully, the content will override that clicking noise. Got to ask you about Dalvin Cook. And check this out, Mr. Greg Gabriel. I actually found a tweet from you in 2017 praising the draft pick of Dalvin Cook by the Vikings. Look at that. Greg Gabriel, April 28th, 2017. Greg Gabriel says the Vikes drafted Adrian Peterson's replacement in Dalvin Cook. Great pick. How about that, Greg? As always, you were right on top of it with player evaluation.
No, well, that's a guy who I think they got him in the second round, and he was a first-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
And he has proven that since he's been in the league. He's fast. He's strong. He's not the biggest guy, but he plays strong.
Right.
Gets yardage after contact, got great lateral mobility, can make people miss in tight or in the open, got real good hands. There's nothing bad about his game. You know, he's a difference maker. And that offense without him can be very average.
Yeah, absolutely. Very average. And on the bottom of the screen here, we're seeing that he had a 100-yard rushing day, and that's his 7th 100-yard rushing game of the season. But against the Chicago Bears, he hasn't had a lot of success. This Bears defense has done a pretty good job of bottling them up. Can you detect any reason why?
Well, don't forget this year he played pretty good, and did Hicks play in that first game?
No, he did not.
Okay, Hicks was there. Obviously, Eddie Golden hadn't been there all year, but you put those two guys in there, and it's a lot tougher to run on the Chicago Bears.
Mm-hmm.
But now Hicks is back this week. You saw the difference it made with Hicks in there at full go. We played 2 weeks ago, but he wasn't full go. Last week he was full go, and it becomes a lot more difficult for teams to run on the Bears because of that. And it's going to be that much more difficult for Minnesota.
Yeah. Now, a guy that I have liked since the first time I saw him, I actually went up to Mankato for a couple of days of watching the Vikings train. And I was impressed with Adam Thielen the first time I saw him. And he is having another outstanding season. He ranks 3rd in the NFL with touchdown catches, with 12 catches. What are your thoughts about Adam Thielen, the wide receiver?
He's a pro. Like I said about Dalvin Cook, there's not a weak point of his game. There's not a weak point in Thielen. He's got good size, good strength. He runs well. He was a sub 4 or 5 guy coming out of college at Mankato. I think it was Mankato he went to too, wasn't it? It was one of those small Minnesota schools.
It was, yeah.
And got great hands, runs good routes, can run after the catch. And they're going to – now, if you go into the first game against the Bears, they were putting him in the slot, sometimes Jefferson in the slot, trying to create a mismatch against Buster Screen. And because if there's a weak link in the Bears secondary, that's where it is. And I don't even think Screen's going to be able – I think it's 50-50 whether he plays because he's in concussion protocol this week.
Right.
But they got to find a way to – last week they did it. He played better, and the Bears' pass defense played better as a whole. But that's going to be the key. Teams have been looking to create mismatches against the Bears secondary, and that's how they've been doing it. They've been going at the weak link.
Yeah. Now, the receiver opposite him, they lost Stephon Diggs during the offseason, and they replaced him with a guy who could be as good and maybe even better. He's being talked about as Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's Justin Jefferson. This is Chuck Pagano on Thursday morning talking about that receiver.
Yeah, this guy's a beast. He's having a hell of a year for a rookie wide receiver. This guy is talented. He's long. He's athletic. 50-50 balls. He comes down with almost 100% of those things. He's very, very competitive. He's very quick at the line when you get up and try to press him. He can He can make guys miss up there, get on top of you. Excellent route runner. The guy looks like a seasoned vet, when you watch him. But I think the biggest thing with him, he's a top competitor, and you have to be on your game. Whoever's on this dude, you have to be locked in. You have to be focused, and you got to compete at the same level.
Greg, prior to the season leading up to the NFL draft, your protege, Danny Shimon, kept telling me, keep an eye on this Jefferson kid. He is special. And boy, he's turned out to be correct. Your thoughts on Justin Jefferson?
Well, I'm going to say this, though. He ain't Stephon Diggs. I watched Diggs every game this year playing for my hometown team, the Buffalo Bills. He's just a couple catches away from having 100 on the year. And he's one of the best receivers in the AFC. Jefferson's a good player. He's a little bit bigger than Diggs, about the same speed. He might be a little bit better after the catch, but his overall play, that's actually a downgrade. But he has played good. But because he's a rookie, teams have focused on stopping Thielen and putting this guy in some one-on-one situations, and he's come up big. Now, here's the one of the keys to the game. Kyle Rudolph had a pretty good game against the Bears in the first game. Rudolph might not be able to play this week. So, if that's the case, that's going to help the Bears in coverage a little bit too.
Yeah, they've got the other young tight end, Irv
Smith.
Right, who is a promising player, but he's not Kyle Rudolph at this point.
Well, he doesn't have that size. Kyle Rudolph is just so big.
Right. All right.
And he's a blocker. What he is, he helps. Without Kyle Rudolph, that hurts their run game a little bit.
Yes. That was the thing when Rudolph came out of Notre Dame. I think, wasn't that a knock on him, was his blocking? And then over the years in the NFL, his blocking has gotten better?
Yeah, he was a top flight player at Notre Dame. He was he might have been a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. Went to school in the Cincinnati area, went to Notre Dame, had a great career at Notre Dame, and then on to the Minnesota Vikings. He's a hell of a player, and if he's not playing Sunday, he might be 31 years old or 32 years old, but it's still a huge loss for their offense.
For sure. Well, and what's interesting is that it is Smith with the most touchdowns between the two of them. Between the two of them, they have 4, but Smith has 3 of those 4. But nonetheless, Rudolph not playing on Sunday would be a big advantage for the Chicago Bears. Let's turn our attention now over to the Vikings defense. It appears like Eric Kendricks might be out on Sunday. He's missed 2 games now. What are your thoughts about a Vikings defense without Eric Kendricks, who I thought had an excellent game against the Bears the first time out?
Well, he does to the Vikings defense what Roquan does for the Bears defense. He's not the biggest guy, but he's fast, very instinctive, great tackler, leads their team in tackles right now with 107. Guy's a very solid football player, and if he's not there, he's really the quarterback of the defense, calls the signals, and if he's not there, that hurts. Eric Wilson's good, but still not having him there, that's a loss for that defense.
Yeah, and that defense has faced a lot of injuries this season, haven't they? I mean, Daniil Hunter, the outstanding pass rusher, he's not playing this season. But despite that, they haven't had a terrible season, although in the second half of games, they have given up a lot of points.
Yeah, no, this team can be beat. Bears just got to play like they did last week. It's a real simple formula.
Yep, that's it.
Good game plan. Stop the other team, you're going to win.
There you go. All right. Let us. Do you have a prediction for this game?
You know what? Last week I picked Houston to win, so I'm going to stay on that side, even though I think the Bears are going to win. But I'll pick Minnesota by 3.
Oh, wow. You're breaking my heart.
I'm only doing that just so, I'm superstitious.
There you go. All right, let's take a quick look at the rest of the NFL action. Tonight on Thursday night, it's the Chargers at Las Vegas. You got a winner in that game, Chargers, Raiders?
I didn't hear everything you said there. Want to repeat that?
Yeah, tonight it's the Chargers and the Raiders playing.
Raiders.
Raiders, okay. And then on Saturday, we've got 2 games on Saturday. The Bills, your team, against the Broncos. I'm sure you got the Bills in that game, right?
Yeah, that game's out of Denver. Denver's a tough place to play now, and only because of the altitude. And because of that, you've got to substitute a lot. You know, your frontline players probably play about 20%, 22% less snaps in a game at Denver than they normally would, and it's because they're not used to playing at the altitude.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think, the Bills lock up the division for the first time in 25 years. If they win, they'll win.
That quarterback on that Buffalo team, he is impressive.
He's special. We're breaking up a lot.
We really are. We really are. We may have to pull the plug early on our show here. Let me just ask you about this one game, the Packers game. Where is it on my schedule here? Who are they playing? Packers. You want to buy this week? No. Let's see.
Packers, I'll get it up here. Packers are playing.
Panthers on Saturday.
Oh. Panthers they're hurting Buffalo right now.
And what about the Notre Dame Clemson game?
I think it's going to be a hell of a football game. In the real world, that'd be a home game for Clemson. But because of COVID, we're not in the real world. I think they're only allowing 6,000 or 8,000 fans in the stadium. That's whoever wants to cough. I saw some tickets are going in that area of $1,400, $1,500, $1,600 a ticket. So, I don't know how that's going to be spread out between Clemson and Notre Dame fans. I think Clemson wins. If it's a close game, I still think both schools are in the playoff, and we'll know that Sunday afternoon.
There you go. All right. You've got the Bears losing to the Vikings. Breaking my heart there. Breaking my heart more than this audio is. I'm going to say goodbye to you, and then I'm going to close the show. So, Greg, thanks a lot for making it on the show. I know you've been in some pain recently, so you sitting through this interview is mighty brave of you, and thank you very much.
Okay, buddy. We'll talk next week.
Talk to you. All right. I think that cures the audio problem, right? That's the problem. So I just wanted to say my feelings on this game. Like I said earlier in the show, this is a critical game for Mitchell Trubisky. Mitch has got to come out here and prove to the Chicago Bears organization, to his teammates, and to the city of Chicago, all of the Bears fans, that he is capable of leading this team to the playoffs. And the way you do that is by having another 3-touchdown game. Now, he has started 6 games this season. 6 games, and in 3 of those, he's thrown 3 touchdown passes. Now, we can get into the particulars and say, but that, one was come from behind and garbage time and threw interceptions and so forth. I don't care. He threw those touchdown passes, and the eye test for me, based on what I saw against, again, a weak Texans defense and the team that came to Chicago, really not looking forward to playing football so much, but he played well, and he's really taking command of this team. He's telling the coaches, this is what I want to run. Today, Bill Lazor in the press conference said, one of the things that has impressed me about Mitch Trubisky is that he is now telling coaches, like, for instance, Matt Nagy might have a favorite play to run. And perhaps Trubisky would not have told Nagy, I really don't want to run that play because of this reason or that reason. Well, now he's speaking up. I put that out on Twitter. I think that perhaps because of Nick Foles' presence and Nick Foles really challenging Matt Nagy with some of the play calling and some of the things in the book. And I remember Nick Foles in preseason saying, when I'm told about a play, I ask a lot of why questions, why this and why that, and it has to make sense to me. If not, I'm not comfortable running it. And so perhaps that's worn off on Mitchell Trubisky, because that appears to be what Trubisky is doing now, and that is huge for the success of this team. Let's see what people are saying in the chat room. Let's see. Bears dub. Yeah, I'm in for it. Matt says, holy shit, guys, get your sound quality together. Yeah, it was, unfortunately, it was the hookup that we have for Greg Gabriel. It failed us today, so we apologize for that. Let's see. Matt also goes on to say that the Bears will win and cover the +3. I like that thinking. I really do. And again, this is a must win. And I can't believe that that they're getting 3 points on that game. But, I don't know what the hell Vegas thinks about it, and I can never explain that. Mr. Josh Harvey, I think Laser and Mitch are going to do really well, better and better every week. I think that there is a nice chemistry there. And let me also add that a lot of people are not talking a lot about the quarterback guru on this team, the quarterback coach, John DeFilippo. John DeFilippo is really a special coach. He kind of failed. He was given the job of offensive coordinator with the Vikings and was fired about 8 games into the season. So he kind of failed in that role. But prior to that, he worked with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he became kind of an internet sensation because he would do these whiteboards or just talk over replays and explain plays. And his communication skills were just so outstanding, and how he diagrammed plays and explained what they were trying to do and so forth. And apparently he just works really well with quarterbacks. So I wonder if also John DeFilippo doesn't deserve some of the credit from Mitch's improvement. I think mechanics-wise, we've seen some improvements with Mitch Trubisky. And remember also, Mitch, during the offseason, he went to an academy here in the Chicagoland area and got some tips on mechanics. And didn't it piss all you guys off when Matt Nagy said during preseason, we really don't focus too much on Mitch's mechanics? He said something to that effect. I was like, what? What the hell was Dave Ragon doing with him the last few years if he wasn't working on mechanics? But I'm glad that Ragon, as the job he has now, and DeFilippo is in there, because it appears to me anyway that Mitch, mechanics-wise, is doing much better. Let's see what else we got here. Brummy Bear, what do you got to say? This new Mitch is not a great look for Nagy or Dave Ragon. I'm with you there, Brummy. Brummy also says, that tells me that Mitch knows he is off at the end of the season. He no longer is scared to stand up for himself and voice his opinions. Nagy's ego must be well dented when Mitch does that. Yeah, perhaps. Now, you'll get Matt Nagy talking about how much he appreciates when players talk up and challenge him and so forth. That's what he tells us. How is he really like in a closed room, in the quarterback's room, with his offensive players and so forth? There have been rumors that Riley Ridley doesn't see the field much because he's kind of challenged Nagy about some of the things that he's been taught. So I don't know. And that's just an allegation, an unproven allegation. So take that for whatever it's worth. Let's see what else we got here. Mr. Josh Harvey, Laser, and DeFilippo are about the only coaches I would like to see stay. Yeah, it's. I think you've got to add Juan Castillo in as the offensive line coach, and I don't think that there was much really wrong with Harry Hiestand. Clearly, the performances, the results by the offensive line in 2019 is not a great thing for Harry Hiestand's resume. But perhaps part of the problem with the offensive line had more to do with Matt Nagy than it did with Harry Hiestand. But either way, both are excellent coaches, and I think Juan Castillo deserves to stick around if there's any changes with the coaching staff. Kelly Jordan says, I say Mitch is fed up with Nagy, and he knows this city has treated him like crap. So what does he have to lose? He's going to definitely do well someplace else. Kelly, I think that Mitch has to go to the right place. I don't think, a quarterback with Mitch's talents can succeed anywhere. He has to go to a place that, the coaches know his strengths, know his limitations, and it has to be that perfect marriage. And frankly, that's the way it is with most quarterbacks. Rarely is there a quarterback in the NFL who can play well under any system. I hate to say it, but truly Aaron Rodgers is one of those quarterbacks who you can even with the Bears, he would probably play well. Brummy agrees with you, Kelly. Let's see what Don Burr says. I'm a Lions fan. Extend Nagy for 3 years. All right, guys. If anyone is within punching range of Don Burr, let him have it. Just kidding. No violence, please. No violence. All right. I think that's it for our comments. This is all impromptu. We had some audio problems with Greg, and so I'm just kind of filling in, trying to get the full 45 minutes, 50 minutes that we usually do on our Thursday show. There's a lot more Bears coverage coming up the rest of the week. Later tonight, we're audio recording Buffon 55, and we've got Luke Bryan, who is the host of Locked On Vikings. Luke is going to provide us in-depth information on the Vikings team. What's going on with that offensive line? What's the latest with the injuries, particularly on defense? If Eric Kendricks is out for the Vikings, I think that's going to be a huge missing piece in that Vikings defense. And hopefully we'll see David Montgomery with more than 11 runs. So that's on Buffon 55. And if you have not listened to Buffon 55, the audio podcast, you really should. Don is the nephew of the great Doug Buffon, number 55 with the Chicago Bears, played 15 seasons, and then had a great broadcasting career here in Chicago doing Bears analysis. And John is cut out of that same cloth. He's got that same passion for the Bears and for Bear football. And so he does a great job with his interviews. And Alyssa Barbieri, who is the managing director over at BearsWire.com. So she knows tons about football. She lends her expertise. And the third segment of that show is divided into 3 segments. The first is the interview with the guest, Luke Bryan of Locked On Vikings. And then the middle is a segment that Alyssa and John does. Alyssa tosses questions to John that he has to answer within 55 seconds as a tribute to his uncle, Doug Buffon, because Doug wore number 55. And then the third segment, I join in for the segment they call Buffon's Basement, and the 3 of us talk about the Chicago Bears. So we're recording that tonight. And then Alyssa and John are also recording another show that it's very important to them and the Barroom. It's called Pass the Mic. It's a show that's dedicated to showcasing women in the sports industry. We all know that there's been a lot more obstacles for women to achieve things in the sports industry business, as there are frankly in most industries. And so John came up with the idea of focusing on reporters who have achieved a lot in the sports industry business and talk about their challenges, and also talk with females who are just entering the business and find out from them how they are overcoming their challenges and trying to get a foothold in the very tough sports media business. So we've got those shows today, and then a show that I want to recommend on Sunday morning, the Barfly Tailgate Show, hosted by some very, very passionate Chicago Bears fans, led by Bobby Bombs and Ryan Badgley and Aaron Current and Mike Schaefer and Ryan Kingsley Billings. RKB, the 5 of them just get you set for the Chicago Bears Minnesota Vikings game. And then after the game, it's John Buffon, Tyler Ellis, and myself with after the game reporting. By the way, there's another show coming out later today. If you like baseball and you're a big Ryan Dempster fan, you should not miss the show. Podcaster and her son, Peggy Kaczynski, who is a longtime Chicago sports reporter who has won 12 Emmys here in Chicago for her sports reporting. She hosts that with her son, Jason, and they're talking to Ryan Dempster. That podcast will be out later today. So that's our full slate of programming now. Oh, and I should also mention that if you had not had a chance to listen to the Mike North Advantage yesterday, you really should. He had on Mike Tomczak, and that interview was sensational. He and Mike Tomczak just talked about the old days, the 85 Bears, how disappointed Tomczak was when Ditka didn't give him the opportunity to play in the NFL championship game and went with Flutie. Tomczak talked about Mitch Trubisky. It's great interview. And then also Mike was a bit fired up because he's been having some internet battles, Twitter, social media battles with fans who are detractors of Mitch Trubisky. And Mike North, if you don't know, is a big fan of Mitch Trubisky. So he kind of let some of the people have it in Mike's inimitable style. So that's a show you should watch. Fantasy football going. We got so many shows here. I always feel bad when I'm trying to plug stuff because I leave out great shows. But we've got tons of them. The best way to stay on top of stuff, if you're into audio podcasts, just Google Bears Bar Room Radio Network. We'll turn up there. So you can get us from iTunes, you can get us from Podbean, you can get us from Stitcher. All of those services and many more deliver the Bears Ballroom Radio Network shows to your devices. And or if you are on Spotify, just type in Bears Ballroom Radio Network and all of our shows are listed there. And those of you who are watching on YouTube, please hit the like button, the subscribe button, and then there's that little bell right there below the screen. Hit that, and you'll get an alert every time we are live. Draft on Tap. I think I mentioned Draft on Tap to Greg. We had a great show on yesterday with Matt Lowe. He is the sports editor, writer over at Lindy's Scouting or Lindy's Sports Magazines, and they do a great job of getting you ready for all sorts of sports seasons. One of my favorite publications that they put out is their NFL Draft publication, and Matt talked with Danny Shimon and Neil Stopchinski about some of the prospects coming up for the 2021 draft. So I'm rambling here. I see all these great comments. I hope they're all, he likes my mustache. Yeah, it's my porn mustache. So that's it. I'm going to go. Thank you for another great show. Hey, Brummy, thank you for always being here. And thank you everyone else who has listened to us live. Really appreciate it. I apologize for babbling. The audio is terrible. It's your headphone connection. No, it's not. The audio is better now. So anyway, we'll leave you with that, with me defending the audio now that Greg is off. I think the audio was from his side. I'm hearing the audio fine now. That's it for our show. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe button. You'll get all of our programming, and God bless you, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.